Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is Rosh HaShanna Chav Tes. We begin on the very bottom line of Chav Ches Amud Beis. Amalei Rab Zera l'Shami. Rab Zera turns to his attendant, his shamas, who happened to be his Baltei Keya. And he says to him, Ichavin, have kavana, have me in mind, ut kali, when you blow for me, says Rashi on the top line. Ichavin ut kali, tiskaven li koya bishmi, have me in mind, lo yitzi'eni yidei chayivasi. It's pretty clear that Rab Zera disagrees with Rava, so learn some Rishonim, as opposed to Rava who says, mitzvah is ein tzrichos kavana. Having that kavana, having in mind to be Yetze, is not a prerequisite for the kiyum mitzvah. Rab Zera disagrees. You need kavana to be Yetze mitzvah. Not only that, if one is blowing for somebody else, he has to specifically have him in mind. I'm going to be moitzi. I'm going to be exempting you. Says the Gemara, Al Makasavar. Apparently, Rab Zera holds mashmiya ba'i kavana. The one who blows the shofar has to have kavana. He has to have the listener in mind. Otherwise, he's not going to be yaitse by just listening to me. Meisvei. We have a kasha from our Mishnah, which says, this fellow is passing behind the shul. Or his home happened to be near the shul. He overhears sound of a shofar coming on Rosh HaShanna, or sound of the Megillah being read on Purim. Well, it depends. Im kivin li bayatza. He has a mind to be yotze, he's yotze. V'im lav lo yotze, but otherwise he's not yotze. Let's stop for a second. Kivin li bay mayhavi. What gain is there by just being mechaven to be yotze? Hayich loika mechaven. The one reading the Megillah, blowing the shofar, didn't have you in mind. You weren't even there. If the blower needs to have him in mind, you don't have it in this case. That's a kasha Rab Zera. We're speaking that a shliach tzibur is doing the blowing. He's a public figure. He has everybody in mind, and therefore there's nothing lacking. Tashma, listen to this next raya. A brisa says like this: Niskaven Shemea. We had this yesterday. Niskaven Shemea. The blower had in mind. Niskaven Shemea, the listener has in mind. Niskaven Mashmiya, but the blower did not have anything in mind. Niskaven Mashmiya, let's say the blower had in mind to do the mitzvah. Niskaven Shemea, but not the listener. Lo Yotza. In either case, it doesn't work. Achi Niskaven Shemea uMashmiya. Both the Shemea, the listener, and the Mashmiya, the blower, have to have in mind. Now, when we say kavana, well, what are we referring to? Let's figure this out. Katani mashmiya dumya shemia. The brisa puts together the kavana attributed to the blower next to the kavana attributed to the listener. Right? We put them in the same list. It seems like it's the same issue, the same concern by both. So essentially, the kavana of the shemia and mashmiya are referring to the same type of kavana. What is that? Mashemea, just as we speak about the kavana, the mindfulness of the listener, shemea la'atzmai. What is he thinking? I'm going to be listening, I'm being yet to the mitzvah for myself. It's his personal, private affair. Af mashmea la'atzmai. Likewise, let's assume the Brisa speaks about kavana of the mashmea, the blower. We're speaking about personal intent, personal kavana. He has a mind to be yotze, mashmei la'atzmei, to blow and to do the mitzvah for himself. Uktani lo yotze. And what does the Brisa say? When we don't have this intention, he's not yotze. But if it's there, the kavanah is present. Which kavanah? Let's focus on the mashmiya. As long as he has the mitzvah in mind, then one listening to him is yotze. You don't need more than that. He doesn't have to have the listener in mind. As long as he's doing a mitzvah and somebody's listening in, that's fine. That's a kasha Rab Zera, who says that you can only be yotze from somebody who has you in mind. Tanoi, indeed, it's a machlekes Tanoim. whether or not you have to have the listener in mind. This sign, Shamea, Shemea la'atzmei. Umashmea, Mashmea lefi darkoi. The listener, all he needs to do is listen for himself, be mekayim mitzvah. The blower, Mashmea la'atzmei lefi darkoi. Just blow with kavanah to be yotze. By the way, meaning engaged in his own personal private affair. At that point, if somebody listens in, it could be yotze as well. Even though the blower was not aware of the fact that somebody's listening in, and he didn't have him in mind. That's one shita. When does this apply? If he's a shliach tzibur, then he doesn't have to consciously think about every individual in the shul. It's a default assumption that he has everybody in mind. But if he's a private individual blowing, lo yotza, one listening is not going to be yotze ashi yiskavin shamea mashmea, unless both the listener and the blower have proper kavanah, which means that the blower has to have kavanah to be moitzi de shamea. And this was the shita followed by Rabbi Zera. That's why he tells us shamas, don't just blow, have me in mind. Continues the Mishnah. In the previous Mishnah we discussed one sound of a shofar, which in one case works if you have kavanah. In the other case doesn't work if you have no kavanah. Same sound. Kavanah determines the value of that experience. The Mishnah will cite several more examples where kavanah, concentration, focus, changes the entire setting. This was when Yisrael waged war with Amalek. When Moshe Rabbeinu picked up his hands, Klal Yisrael was strengthened. If he laid his hand down, Klal Yisrael weakened. Do you mean that Moshe Rabbeinu's outstretched hands add power, make a difference in the war? Or weakens them when his hands are down? How could his hands, the position of his hands, influence the war? Rather, we learn a lesson from him. It wasn't just the physical positioning of his hands which affected the progress of the war. It was a spiritual effect taking place. He was inspiring them by keeping up his hands. As long as his hands were stretched upward, heavenward, which influenced Yisrael, inspired Yisrael to look heavenward and connect to Hashem. In which case they would submit themselves to Hashem and attribute everything to Hashem, the source of all existence. At that point, they would be strengthened. They would get special siyata d'shmai. But otherwise, when his hands were down and they were lacking that source of inspiration, they would be weakened as well. In similar fashion, we learn the next pasuk. Klal Yisrael was being stricken by snakes. Moshe turns to Hashem, help. Hashem says, Aseh lecha saraf. Go ahead and fashion a copper snake, v'sim oisei al nes, and place it on top of a pole. V'hoya kol hanoshech, v'ra'a oisei v'chay. If one gets bitten by a snake, you should take a look at the snake up on top of that pole, and he will live. Asks the Mishnah, a snake can influence a person's life? An image of a snake can make a difference? V'chi nachash meimus, do you mean that the nachash brings death? A nachash machaya, or this copper snake brings life? Ella, rather, it was had a symbolic effect. It was a source of inspiration, which brought about the refor. El bezman she Yisrael mistaken klapim mala. Rather, when Yisrael looked heavenward, up towards the snake, which was really a declaration of the fact that snakes are nothing. They're just Hashem's emissaries. They attributed everything back to the source of all existence, Hashem, the source of all goodness. By doing that, by mistakon klapim mala umeshabden eslivim lavim shashmayim, and going back to their source, doing tshuva, connecting back to Hashem, and placing themselves back in His hands, in His control, hoyu misrapin, that would bring the remedy. But otherwise, they didn't have that connection to Hashem. They would wither away, they would be affected by by earthly creatures such as snakes. Once we speak about being mitzi somebody else, who has the ability to exempt somebody from a mitzvah? Cherish, a person's deaf. Typically, cherish in the Mishnah means deaf and dumb. But here when we speak about tkiyas shofar, the ability to hear is critical. So in this case, even if he's a partial cherish, he's just lacking the hearing abilities, he's deaf, he doesn't have the ability to be mitzi somebody in tkiyas shofar, because tkiyas shofar is mainly something which is attributed to hearing, lishmayach l'shofar, as we say in the brach. So if he doesn't have that ability, he can't get involved. Cherish shoyte, somebody mentally unstable, but katan ein mitziin es rabim dechevasan, they can't exempt others from the rechiv of shofar. Zaklal, as we follow the following rule, which is kol she'einem mechuyev b'davar, if one doesn't have his own chiv, einei mitzi es rabim dechevasan, he can't blow for somebody else either. Taner Rabbanan, hakoil chayavim b'tkiyas shofar. All are obligated in tkiyas shofar, whether it's kayhanim, olavim, v'Yisrael, megerim, v'avada meshachrarim, released slaves, v'tumtum, a fellow whose simanim are covered up. It's impossible to tell whether he's a zachar or nekeva. So although an isha is potter from mitzvah shofar, it's mitzvah sensation as man grama, but this fellow who is a tumtum is really an unknown. His gender is unknown, and therefore he's chayiv in tkiyas shofar just in case he's a zachar. V'adraigenus, likewise a fellow who has both simanim, zachar and nekeva, he needs to blow just in case he's really a zachar. Or a fellow who's half eved, half free. How's that possible? He was owned by two partners, and one of them released him, so now he's half free, but half an eved. He's chayiv in tkiyas shofar. Now, what about being mitzi other people? Tumtum. Einei mitzi lo yasminoi. This tumtum has a real problem. He can listen from others. He can listen to a Baal Takeh, but he can't be mitzi somebody else. You know why? He can't do it not for somebody else who is minai, the same type of tumtum. Why? Because maybe the one blowing is really a zachar, right? His gender is unknown. Maybe the blower is a zachar, and the listener is a nekeva, or just the opposite. He's really a nekeva. Underneath that skin coverage, he's really in a caver. And the other fellow who's a tumtum is really a zachar, because a tumtum sometimes can turn out to be a zachar, sometimes in a caver. So therefore, a tumtum cannot be mitzi somebody of the same type. And certainly he can't be mitzi somebody who's unlike him, is somebody who's really a zachar. Because once again, maybe the tumtum is really in a caver, in which case he's pater from shofar, and doesn't have the ability to be mitzi a zachar. As opposed to an androgynous, he isn't more he's known. His situation is known. He has both simana, right? So in this case, moitzi es minoi, we have two androgynuses. One of them could be moitzi the other one. Why? Because if an androgynous is considered a zachar, so they're both a zachar. If an androgynous is a nekeva, so they're both nekeva. Right, all androgynuses were consistently the same thing. We're not sure how to treat them, but whatever one is, the other one is. So therefore, androgynous is mitzi asmina. He can exempt a fellow who is an androgynous like him, but he can't be mitzi a fellow who is not like him, meaning a fellow who is really a zachar, because perhaps the androgynous is treated halachically like an akeva, in which case he's pater from shofar and cannot be mitzi as zachar. So this is dafka by androgynous, because all androgynuses were considered the same type. Either they're all zacharim, all nekevas. So miman of shachik, you might see your fellow androgynous, as opposed to a tumtum, which is a real suffix. His simanim are covered up. One fellow could turn out to be a zachar, a fellow nekeva. Therefore, he can't take chances. You can't be mitzi even a fellow tumtum. This fellow was half eved, half ben chayrin. This fellow can't be mitzi anybody. He can't be mitzi somebody who's like him, nor can he be mitzi somebody who's completely a ben chayr. Why? Rashi says, because this chatzi eved, v'chatzi ben chayr, has an element of abdus in him. He's half eved. So that element of slave within him cannot be used to be mitzi somebody else who has an element of chayrus. So even though both these fellows are in the same boat, both half and halves, but each one of them has an element of chayrus, of a full-fledged bar chiyuva, which needs to hear to get a shofar from a person who's fully obligated. So now if this chatzi eved and chatzi ben chayr gets up and blows his shofar, is really one unit comprised of two elements. So true, the half that's ben chayr could be mitzi the other fellow, but the half of himself, the element of avdus within himself, which is pata from shofar, and eved and isha have the same halachas, right? The pata from shofar doesn't have the ability to participate in blowing that shofar for the other fellow who needs to address his free side. So your slave side can't address the other person's free side and can't really split the two parts within the person. And therefore, you cannot be mitzi anybody. So chatzi eved v'chatzi ben chayr cannot be mitzi lo yasminai v'lo yish'enei minai. Neither it can be mitzi a person like himself, nor a person that's completely a zachar. Amar, let's go back to the price. Everybody is meant to blow the shofar on Rosh HaShanna. Kohanim, Levim, Yisrael. Well, pshita, obviously. If these fellows are not chayiv, man machayiv, then who else is chayiv? You've gone through the entire list of Klal Yisrael. Of course they're chayiv. Kohanim et strichli. There's an extra chiddush by Kohanim. Perhaps I would think they're pata. Why? Sakadai dechamina. Perhaps I would think. Hoyel v'ksiv yoyim etruah yelachem. Rosh HaShanna is a yoyim truah. I would say, man de lese ilabet kia dechad yoyim. Somebody who's only chayiv to blow once a year, Rosh HaShanna, who the machayiv? He needs to blow Rosh HaShanna. V'hane Kohanim, as opposed to Kohanim, hoyel ve'isnu betkiyas de kol HaShanna. Since they're involved in blowing throughout the entire year, when they bring karbanis, t'chsiv v'sakatam v'chatzotzreis, you meant to blow your trumpets in the Mikdash, al oiloi seichem. So perhaps they're engaged in blowing the entire year. Perhaps they don't need to blow anymore on Rosh HaShanna. If you don't blow the entire year, Rosh HaShanna is your time of blowing. If you're engaged in Tkiyas the entire year, perhaps the Chiyuv of Tkiyah on Rosh HaShanna doesn't apply to you. Kamash Blan says the Brisa, no, even a Kohen is Chayiv. Midami, how could you compare Rosh HaShanna to the rest of the year, where you're blowing trumpets, not a horn? Hasam Chatzoitris. Over there, they're blowing horns. Trumpets. B'chashayfa, here it's a horn. What's the connection? Why would I think they're pata for blowing a shofar just because they blow trumpets? Ella, rather, Israch, the Chiddush by the Kohanim and Levim is as follows. Sakadai Tachamina, perhaps I would say, Hoyelotzinan, since we learned in the Mishnah. Shave, Hayovel Rosh HaShanna, L'tkio L'brachis. Rosh HaShanna and Yovel go together when it comes to blowing the shofar, the brachis, and Shemona Esrei. So we equate the two. Perhaps I would think, man de isei b'mitzvahs hayovel. A fellow who's obligated in all the details of Yovel, isei b'mitzvah Rosh HaShanna. He fulfills all mitzvahs of Rosh HaShanna as well, as opposed to the Kohanim and Levim. V'hani Kohanim and Levim. Since they're not really fully engaged in the mitzvahs of Yovel, this non, we learned in the Mishnah. During the point in history when Yovel was observed, there were all kinds of other halachas as well. You sell a field, you can redeem it, but you have to wait 2 years. Leave it in the hands of the buyer for 2 years, and then you can redeem it. You sell a home in a walled city, you can be paid up until the first year. We have certain halachas and restrictions when it comes to transactions, land transactions, which are somewhat Yovel related, because it was only during the point in history when Yovel was observed. Kohanim and Levim are exempt from these halachas. This non. Kohanim and Levim, Meichron Olam, V'goyim Olam, they can sell all the time and redeem all the time. They don't have these restrictions. So perhaps since all details of Yovel don't apply to them. Eima b'mitzvah Rosh HaShanna like a chayva. Perhaps they're exempt from the mitzvahs of Rosh HaShanna. They don't need to blow the shofar. Kamash one the chalish is yes. Everybody's on the same list. Kayhanim, Leviim, and Israel. We spoke about Misha Chetzi Evet, Chetzi ben Chayrin. He's half and half. Einay Moitzi lo Yisminai, V'lo Yeshena Minai. Rashi explained, the reason is because he has an element of a slave within him, which can't go ahead and be Moitzi, somebody who is a free fellow. Amar Rav Huna, V'lo Atzmei Moitzi. What about if he decides to blow for himself? Can he? Yeah, sure. You can't be mighty to somebody else because your avdus can't be mighty to the other person's cheres. But for himself, after all, he's one unit, he's one person. So he can blow for himself. Apparently Rav Huna holds. It's like the chelik of the cheres will take care of the chelik of the cheres, and the chelik of the avdus will take care of the avdus. They don't interfere. Amr Rav Nachman Rav Huna, no, how could you say that? This fellow has an element of avdus in him. How could he even be mighty himself? Remember, he has a part of cheres within him, which needs to hear from a free man, not an eved. Why can't he be mighty to somebody else? Because the chelik of the eved within him cannot exempt the chelik of the cheres within his fellow half and half friend. Well, atzmi namiloi. Asitzad avdus today. Umapik tzad cheres today. He blows for himself. You're running into the same problem. Well, the also tzad avdus today, the tzad, the element of avdus within himself, cannot come along umapik tzad cheres today and exempt the free element within himself. Elo Rav Nachman, afla atzmi nemeitzi. He can't even be mighty himself. He has to go to shul, listen to the shliach tzibur. Tanya mihacha. We find the same in a brayse. Misha chevtzi evet v'chetzi ben chern. This fellow was half and half. Not only can't he exempt others, afla atzmai enemitz. Tony Ava, that was his name, Breder of Zera. So Ava, the son of Zera, taught us as follows: Kol brachos kulan. When it comes to brachos of mitzvahs, afal pishiyotza moitzi. Even if a person already made his bracha, he made it out kiyas shmei kol shofar, and he finds somebody who needs a bracha, moitzi, he can do it again for that person. Kol Yisrael ha'reivim zeh. If that fellow wasn't Yaitse, says, oh, you aren't Yaitse. You can do it for him. Even though personally you don't need it. That applies to all Birchas HaMitzvahs. Chutz, except Birchas HaLechem or Birchas HaYain. Except for brachas, which are called Birchas HaNenen, HaMoitzi over bread, HaGofen over wine. Shem lo yatsa moitzi. If you're still before your bracha, two people sitting down together to have breakfast, one can make a moitzi for the other. But if Reuven already made his hamaitzi, you can't repeat it again for Shimon. Why? What's the difference between Birchas Hanenin and Birchas HaMitzvah? Says Rashi, 7 lines from the bottom. When it comes to Birchas HaMitzvahs, Aval B'shiyot Samaitzi, Shari Kol Yisrael Arevim, Zeh B'zel Mitzvahs. We all have to look out for each other, responsible for each other when it comes to mitzvahs. If you don't have the bracha, I don't have it yet, and I can do it for you. That's my mitzvahs. Chutz and birchas halachem v'yayin. Ushar birchas peres v'richni. Other brachas on food and smells. Shein and chayva. There's no chiv to make these brachas. Ela she'asur lahanis min olam hazeh b'lei bracha. By default, you have to make the bracha. You can't enjoy the world without a bracha. Ubezu enkan arvis. Arvis doesn't apply here. Shein and chayva la'adam. No chiv to make ha'etz. Nobody asked you to have the apple. Don't have the apple, don't make the bracha. True. If he wants the apple, he needs a bracha. But you can't compare it to birchas HaMitzvahs, which is an absolute chiyuv. To listen to the shofar, read the Megillah. And therefore, we apply the halacha of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'zeh. I have to look after your chiyuv as well. Even if I personally don't need the mitzvah or the bracha any longer, but I could do it again for your sake. Continues the Gemara, Boy Rav. What about in the case of Birchas HaLechem Shel Matzah? It's Pesach at night, he's going to have his matzah. And can make a bracha al chilas matzah. That's called Birchas HaMitzvahs. But remember, there's another bracha there as well, Amoitzi Lechem and Arz, which is technically Birchas HaNenen. Could I say it again for you? Ubrichas hayayin shel kiddush hayom. Mao. Kiddush on Shabbos or Yom Tov. So we have the Berachas HaMitzvah, Asher Kiddushanu. We also have the Hagafen, plain Hagafen, which is technically a Berachas HaNenen. I already said it. Can I say it again for you? Kiven the Chayvahu, Mapik. Perhaps since it's part of the obligatory experience of the Kiddush or the Achilas Matzah, I could do it for your sake. Oidilmo, perhaps Bracha Lav Chayvahi. Sure, Achilas Matzah is a Chayva, Kiddush is a Chayva, but the Berachas HaNenen element of that Matzah, of that Kiddush, is not technically a Chayva. So perhaps it's considered like a Berachas HaNenen, and I can't do it for your sake. Once I've already made my own, says Rashi on the top line. Berachas HaLechem Shel Achilas Matzah Shemavorchen Fnei HaMoitzi. Shemavorchen HaMoitzi. So you make a Al Achilas Matzah, that's certainly a Berachas HaMitzvahs that I could do for you, but the Berachas HaLechem, HaMoitzi, or Berachas HaYayin Shemavorchen Lefnei Kiddush, Mao. Al Achilas Matzah Makadosh Yisrael, Rashi points this out, that the Bracha Al Achilas Matzah, or the Bracha of Makadosh Yisrael, there's no question. Like Tiboylach, the Chayveninu Mapik. They're Chayuvim. Chayuv to make Kiddush. Chayuv to have Matzah. So that Bracha is called Berachas HaMitzvahs, and I could do it for you. Ela Berachas HaMoitzi, Berachas HaYayin Miboylan. What about the HaMoitzi? The Hagafen, that's the Shayla. Shein boys, the only reason why you make them is because it's a Hanoah, El Visham Avarach, Tzorach Shiyutem. Let's say by Kiddush. And the Iker Kiddush is not the Hagafen. But since you're going to make a Kiddush on wine, it's not covered. Rashi says in Pesachim to make a Kiddush without tasting it, so you're going to taste it as well, so you make a Hagafen. You can drink it without a bracha. Or if he's not going to drink it, somebody else will drink it. And that's why I need a bracha. So the question is, how to treat this bracha? And the experience is a chayva. Achilas matzah chayva alav. Kiddush hayom chayva alav. And fact is, by default, you can't have it without the hano. And hano can't be without a bracha. So by extension, nimtzis ha-mitzvah tluya b'brachas hano mapik. The mitzvah is totally in the brachas hano. Let's treat it like a brachas ha-mitzvah, and you can be mitzi somebody, even though you yourself already made that bracha. Or perhaps not. Let's split the elements here. Brachas hano life chayva l'mitzvah asya. Technically, brachas hano is not a mitzvah-related bracha. Shaf b'kol hano is hinei hagas. Even in a non-mitzvah setting, you make that same bracha for the hano. So technically, this bracha is not a brachas ha-mitzvah. Or no, since it's being grouped together, bundled together with the mitzvah. In this case, the mitzvah can't happen without this bracha. Let's treat it like a brachas ha-mitzvah. So that's an interesting question. Can I be mitzi or not? Tashma says the Gemara, let's bring a raya from Rav Ashi. Dam Rav Ashi, ki avinan be Rav Papi. When we were in the home of Rav Papi, have a mekadeshlan. First he made kiddush for us. When his sharecropper showed up from the field, have a mekadesh, he would make a kiddush for them. Apparently, that's okay, because berachas hagafen is treated like a berachas ha-mitzvah in this case. Tan Rabban, leivers adam prusa la'archen. So a person shouldn't slice his bread, meaning, and make the berachas ha-maitzi, which is a berachas ha-nen. Elam kein oichel iman. He shouldn't do it for his guests unless he's joining them in the meal. You can't make a berachas ha-mitzvah, a berachas ha-nen for somebody else. Aval perus u'lebanov u'bnei beis. But we have an exception. You can slice and make the ha-maitzi for your children. To teach them the mitzvah, train them. So even though you personally don't need the bracha, but you can do it for their sake. To be mekayim mitzvahs chinuch. Ubahal b'megillah, as opposed to real mitzvahs, halal megillah, afa b'shiyatza moitzi, even if he already had his halal and megillah, can repeat it again with the bracha for somebody who needs to be yaitzi. Hadron nachru bezn. So what do we learn so far until this point? Whoever is chayiv in a davar and a mitzvah can be mitzi others. Regarding kavanah to be mitzi of a machlokes, who was chayiv and shofar, kahanim levim Yisraelim, and gerim, avodim, shachrorim, tumtum adrognus, and even somebody who was a half hevet, half ben chayrin. Regarding being mitzi somebody else, a tumtum cannot be mitzi anybody. We don't know what he is, a zachor and a keva. As opposed to androgynous, he could be mitzi somebody who is an androgynous like him. Either they're both zacharim, so it works, or they're both nekevas and they're both pot. Chatzi evet cannot be mitzi others or even himself, because there's an element of an evet with him. Typically, when it comes to brechas ha-mitzvahs, even if you're already yotze, you can be mitzi others, because you have to look after him. Kol Yisrael arevim zeh b'zeh. That applies to brechas ha-mitzvahs. Not to brechas ha-nenen. One exception for that, ketanim, then you could do it to be mechanech them mitzvahs. And the Gemara concludes that a brechas ha-nenen was associated with a mitzvah is regarded like the mitzvah itself, and you can be mitzi others. Continues the Mishnah. Yom Tov shel Rosh HaShanna shechol yis b'Shabbos. Rosh HaShanna falls out on Shabbos. But Migdash hayu token. Tkiyah shofar only took place in the Beis HaMikdash. Avaloi b'Medina, but not outside the Mikdash. Rashi learns, not even in Yerushalayim. The Rambam and Pirush HaMishnah learns, Loi b'Medina means outside the Mikdash and outside Yerushalayim. But Yerushalayim itself was considered like the Mikdash in this regard. That was when the Mikdash was standing. Mishachar Beis HaMikdash after the Churban, Hisken Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, Sheyu Toiken B'chol Makom Sheish B'Bezdin. They would continue this practice of blowing even on Shabbos, provided you're in the vicinity of a Bezdin. We wanted to keep the tradition of blowing even on Shabbos, as long as there's a Bezdin, and we treat it like the Mikdash, where they would blow even on Shabbos, as opposed to outside the Mikdash. The Gemara explains there was a chashash of carrying through the street, so there was no blowing on Shabbos. But in the Mikdash, and likewise after the Churban, when there's a Bezdin, a full Bezdin of Sanhedrin Gedolah, then we blow the shofar. Amar Belezer lehiskin Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai el b'yavne b'lvad. Oh, so Belezer holds, it only applies when it's a Sanhedrin Gedolah, such as the Sanhedrin in Yavne. We'll learn later in the Gemara the Sanhedrin had 10 golios, traveled 10 times, and one of the stops was Yavne. So that's where we had the Sanhedrin Gedolah, and there we have this allowance to blow on Shabbos. But if it's just a mini Sanhedrin, like 23 Dayanim, this halacha doesn't apply. Amr Loi, the Rabbanan responded to Rabbi Lezer, don't limit it to Yavne, Echad Yavne, V'echad kol makom sheish bei Bezdin. It applies to Yavne, or any place where there's a Bezdin, even a smaller Bezdin of 23 Dayanim. V'oid zois hoysa Yerushalayim yiser al Yavne. The Gemara will explain what the words v'oid zois mean. What are we adding to? But in any case, we find that Yerushalayim had an advantage over Yavne. So Yerushalayim bibinyana, when the Mikdash was standing, had an advantage when it comes to Tkiyah Shofar over Yavne. So although in both places they would blow on Shabbos, but there was a ma'ala to Yerushalayim. Shekol eir shehi roya, a city from which you can see Yerushalayim. It's close enough to see. V'sheimas, and can listen in to the Tkiyahs happening in Yerushalayim. Ukroiva, and is close enough within the Tchum v'chel lovei, which case you can travel from there to Yerushalayim on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Toiken, just as you blow in Yerushalayim, you blow in the surrounding towns as well. So the heter of blowing on Shabbos in Yerushalayim wasn't just limited to Yerushalayim, but was extended to the suburbs as well. As opposed to after the Churban, when there was no Yerushalayim, but they would blow in Yavne, that was limited to Yavne, the Makom HaBezdin. But outside the Makom HaBezdin, there was no allowance to blow. Now, you may ask a kasha. We're saying that not only can you blow in Yerushalayim, but even in the surrounding towns. What do you mean? We just said that the heter to blow was only in the Mikdash. And Rashi explains, you can't even blow in Yerushalayim. So what does the Mishnah mean? Not only would they blow in Yerushalayim, but even in the suburbs. Ritva says that the Mishnah is speaking at that point when the Sanhedrin left the Mikdash and took up position in Yerushalayim itself. That was one of the journeys, one of the stops in the journey. In which case, at that point, the whole Yerushalayim was considered, to a certain extent, like the Mikdash when it comes to blowing the shofar. It was no longer limited to the Mikdash, but the whole Yerushalayim took on the status of Mikdash when it comes to blowing the shofar, because the Sanhedrin was sitting in Yerushalayim. At that point, says the Mishnah, the heter was not only limited to Yerushalayim, but would extend to the surrounding towns as well, as opposed to after the Churban Mikdash, when the Bezdin moved to Yavne, the heter only applied b'makam Bezdin, and that's it. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Rosh HaShanna falls on Shabbos, we don't blow. How do we know this? Because one pasuk says, Shabbos and Zichron Tro. Rosh HaShanna is a time of Zichron, a remembrance of blowing. As though we just recite psukim as a zikaron, but we don't actually blow. We have another pasuk, Yom Tro Yelachem, the day of blowing. Which one is it? Blowing or no blowing? Like Kasha, the answer is, depends when it is. Can't be Yom Tov Shechalias b'Shabbos. If Rosh HaShanna is Shabbos, we just make mention of Tro, we don't blow. Can't be Yom Tov Shechalias b'Chol, but if it's during the week, we blow as well. Amar Rava, how could you say it's based on psukim? Imi d'oraisa. If it's an issa d'oraisa to blow on Shabbos, b'mikdash hechetakinan. Why are you blowing in the mikdash? Pasuk says, don't blow on Shabbos. V'ayit, another kasha. Halav malacha. Blowing a shofar, it doesn't entail a malacha. The itzra krolim uti, the Torah would come and not allow it. The Tana dvei shmol. Kol malechas avodah lo yisasu. On Shabbos and Yom Tov, we refrain from malacha. A malacha is asur. Yatz is a tkiyah shofar as opposed to blowing a shofar. Rudias apas, or removing bread from an oven. Shi chachma, it involves talent. Ve'en a malacha, but it's not a malacha. It's only asur d'Rabbanan. So why would the Torah prohibit blowing a shofar on Shabbos? Elam arava, with the Raisa Mishra Shari. In the Torah, there's no concern at all. For Rabban who the Gazer Bay, the Rabban applied a Gzer. They were concerned k'de Rabba, Dama Rabba. Hakol chayavan b'tkiyah shofar. Really, everybody has to blow a shofar, as we learned earlier. Vein hakol b'kiyin b'tkiyah shofar. But unfortunately, not everybody's an expert in blowing a shofar, and therefore, there's always a Gzera. Shema yitlenu b'yadai v'yelech eitz labaki l'omid. Come Shabbos, he's stuck without tkiyos. He just has a shofar. He doesn't know what to do with it. He might grab hold of that shofar and go to the expert to teach him how to blow. And in the process, carried 4 amis in the street and do an issur. Therefore, say the Chachamim, Shabbos we cancel tkiyas shofar. Vaynu time in the lulav. This is the same reason why we don't shake a lulav on Shabbos. Vaynu time in the Megillah. Same why we don't read a Megillah on Shabbos, because he might be tempted to carry it through the street to take it to the expert. Show him how to shake, show him how to read a Megillah. But in the Mikdash, we don't apply this Issa d'Rabbanan. Why not? So maybe take a look at Rashi, 14 lines from the bottom. He says, Gzera Shemeitlenu. That applies in a non-Mikdash setting. Ube Mikdash like Gazer, dein Isra Shvus Rabbanan Mikdash. So Rashi learns, the reason why there is no Issa d'Rabbanan in the Mikdash, because ain't Shvus Mikdash. General rule, we don't apply Issa d'Rabbanan in the Mikdash. Then Farshim ask on Rashi, to Re'ev and others, don't we know that Ein Shvus Mikdash is not a blank check? More Bates is mashma like that. It's only to enable avodah, to facilitate avodah. But just because you're in a Mikdash, does that mean you put from all Yisur D'Rabbanan? Of course not. So what does blowing a shofar have to do with the Mikdash? What does it have to do with karbanis? Why would we suspend the Yisur D'Rabbanan just because it's in the Mikdash? It appears from Rashi that, blowing a shofar relates to the Mikdash. In fact, you may remember the Gemara we learned back in Chavav. The Gemara spoke about not using the horn of a para in kateganas sanegar. We don't want to create a zikaron of the egel. What do you mean? It's outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and what's the concern? It's not bifnim. The Gemara says, Kivon del zikarnu kulifnim dami. The point of blowing the shofar is to arouse the zikaron, the good remembrance, the essence, the true entity, the true essence of Yisrael. and that brings about zikaron and connection to Hashem, that's kibifnim dami. Has the same value, same weight, same effect as doing avodah in Kodesh HaKadosh. Oh, so now we can very much understand the chashivas of blowing a shofar in the Mikdash. It's as though he's doing avodah in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and therefore we say ein shvus v'mikdash, just as we don't say shvus by other korban and avodah related issues. Continues the Gemara. Mishachara Beis Hamikdash hiskin Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, to continue the tradition, and at least in the makom of Bezdin, we should continue blowing even on Shabbos. Continues the Gemara. Tanarabon Hamachas Chal Rosh HaShanna Leis B'Shabbos. So how did this happen? When did the Takana get established? It so happens that one time Rosh HaShanna falls out on Shabbos, and Bezdin at this point was in Yavne. V'hayu kol ha'arim miskansen. And everybody from the surrounding cities gathered together in Yavne. They figured, just like in the time of the Mikdash, there was shofar. Here as well, there's going to be shofar in Yavne. Amalem Rabbi Yehuda Zakkai, he turned to the Livnei Beseira, to the Livnei Beseira, with the Gdei Ador, Rashi says. Niska, should we blow? This was the first time it happened. Should we blow on Shabbos? Amr Loi, they responded, Nidan, let's sit down and deliberate. Let's figure it out. Amr Lahem, so he says, you know what, Nitka, let's first blow Vachach Nidan, then we'll figure it out. This was his way of getting it, moving it forward. He held that you meant to blow. That was his takana. So he says, you know what, let's do it and then we'll ask questions. After they finished blowing, Amr Loi Nidan. Okay, so he said, okay, let's sit down and figure it out. Was it right? Was it wrong? Let's figure out what to do in the coming years. Amr Lahem, so he told him, look, too late. Kvar Nishma Karen B'Yavna. The horn, the sound of the horn was already heard in Yavna, meaning it's done. Vein lachar masa, vein mashiv lachar masa. It's inappropriate to go question what we did. Rashi says it's a gnai, to be mighty laws, that perhaps they did something wrong, the halacha was done wrong. So once it's done, it's done. So that was his way of getting it going. Right? They had a shaila whether the halacha of the gzeira Hashem might carry through the street applies in the makam bezdin or not. And he says, no, let's just do it, because he held in a makam of bezdin. Apparently, it's bezdin is going to look after it, and there's no concern of any carrying through the street. The shluchah bezdin would be the ones to be take care in any case. So the halacha d'Rabban doesn't apply. Let's just continue the tradition that we have in the Mikdash. Let's blow even on Shabbos, and let's just do it. And then once it was done, it was established. Let's not question it anymore. And this is how the takana got established. Going forward, they would blow whenever there was a bezdin. They would blow even on Shabbos. Lezer maintains this was a special exemption for Yavne, where the Iker Sanhedrin was. Amru loy, but the Chacham respond, Echad Yavne, vechad kol makam sheish bebezdin. Not only when you have the large, full Sanhedrin, full session, but even a small bezdin, like a 23 bezdin, would also allow blowing on Shabbos. Now, Amru loy hanu Tanakama. This response, Amru loy, is exactly a carbon copy of a Tanakama, who also says, whenever there's a bezdin, we blow. Tanakama quotes Rabbi Yehuda Zakkai, "She'utoikim b'chol makom sheish bebezdin." Not only in the Sanhedrin Gedola. Rabbi Lezer responds, no, only in Yavne. And Amr Loi, they responded to him, no, anywhere, wherever there's a bezdin. Well, Amr Loi, Hana Tanakama, isn't he repeating Tanakama? Why do we have it as a third shita? Is it a third shita? It could be now. There is a slight difference between Tanakama and the Amr Loi. Beidina da'kroi. We have a bezdin which is not really a permanent in place. It's in transit, roving bezdin. So according to Tanakama, it still allows tkiyah. He says, any place we have a bezdin, you have to have a bezdin here. They'll look after it, and that allows it tkiyah. Whereas Rabbi Lezer said, Dafka Sanhedrin Gedola, and the Amr Loi tell Rabbi Lezer, no. Whether it's Yavna, which is an established Sanhedrin Gedola, or other bezdins which are established as well. Oh, so it's been established bezdin, a makam, a bezdin kavua, just like Yavna. So although it's a smaller bezdin, but it's an established bezdin, it's a makam bezdin, and the Issa D'Rabban doesn't apply in that case. But if it's just a roving bezdin in transit, we don't make exception for that. That's not part of the takana. Chacham did not want to make so many different variations of their halacha. If it's a makam bezdin, fine, but otherwise there's no heta. So conclusion, regarding Yom Tov that falls out on Shabbos, an individual doesn't blow. In the Mikdash they would blow. Why doesn't a Yachad blow Gzera they might carry through the street? In the Mikdash, we don't have Shvus Mikdash. After the Churban, Rabbi Yehuda Zakkai, through that whole story, was successful in establishing the Takana to continue blowing in a makam of bezin. Now, according to Rabbi Lezer, Davka in a makam of Sanhedrin of Shivim ve'echad, the Grand Sanhedrin, whereas according to Tanakama, any bezin suffices. Even if it's not a bezin kavua, that's okay. According to the Amrulai, it's Davka bezin kavua, even though it's a small sized bezin. Okay, what did we learn today? We started with the story of Rabbi Zero, who tells us Shamash, when you blow from me, you have kavanah to be meitzimi. He holds that you have to have kavanah, you have to have the person in mind. The more concluded, actually it's machlekes tanaim, whether or not you have to specifically have your listener in mind, but all agree that by shliach tzibur, it's automatically, it's built into the system that he has anybody in mind. We learned how kavanah can impact the situation. Moshe Rabbeinu's hands upward would inspire Yisrael and would result in them strengthening themselves in that war against Amalek, in that spiritual war which manifests itself in a physical form as well. And likewise, when you look upward and you mishabed yourself to Hashem, you relieved of the effect of the nechashim, and likewise all physical phenomena can't harm a person. You're fully in the hands of Hashem. Typically, everybody is chayiv in Tekiyah Shofar, except for the Nashim and the Avadim, of course, because they're Patah Mitzvah Seisha Zman Grama. What about being Moitzi somebody else? So the concept is, if you're chayiv, you can be Moitzi somebody else, as opposed to Cheru Shoyte B'Katan, they can't be Moitzi others. What about a Tumtum, which is really a suffix Zachar and a Keva? He can't be Moitzi anybody. An Androgynous can be Moitzi another Androgynous, because they're either both Zachar and both Nekevas. A Chatzi, Eved Chatzi Ben Charen, who has an element of Avdus within him, can't be Moitzi anybody, even himself, because he has an element of Cherus within him, which needs to hear from a Parachiyuva. When it comes to Birchas HaMitzvahs, even if you're already Yoitzi, you can be Moitzi somebody else. Birchas HaNenen, no, except for the Ketanim. A Birchas HaNenen associated with a mitzvah, yes. Chacham concerned about carrying on Shabbos. Therefore, you're not meant to blow the shofar on Shabbos. In the Mikdash, they allowed it, and likewise in the Malkum of Bezdin. All the best to you and much atzlacha.